Till now we have discussed only discrete outcomes in all the representations of probability distributions. For example, the traffic value was either low, medium or high. What happens if the outcome is a real number? Obviously we cannot use tabular form. The possible outcomes are infinite. We cannot list all of them in a table. Can we present such a probability? Can we represent such a probability through a formula in such cases? It turns out that we cannot do it directly. To illustrate it, imagine that outcome of a stochastic system is a real number between 2 and 4. Any number between 2 and 4 is equally likely. Consider such a probability distribution. Then the probability function, if at all we are going to express it in the formula, the functions will have a distribution in the following form. Since it falls strictly between 2 and 4, its probability outside 2 and 4 will be 0, and within this range its value should be equal, since any number between 2 and 4 is equally likely. So now consider that the condition we had on probability distribution, that sum of all probabilities must be 1. But here we cannot, with the summation will be infinite, because between any two real numbers there are infinite real numbers. So if we add all these probability values, the sum will become infinite. So hence we cannot use the formula based representation directly. We can notice that the area under such a curve is finite. If we perform integration, the area turns out to be 2c. So we can do it easily as shown here. So what if we make the area under the curve 1? Okay. So if we let us choose a suitable value c. So if 2c should be equal to 1, that means c should be 0.5. So then the area under this curve becomes 1. We can treat that as a probability of omega. It satisfies the constraint that the total probability should be 1. Can we derive the probability of subsets by extending this logic? Fortunately, yes, it can be naturally extended. For any subset of real number defined as interval between two numbers a and b, as indicated here, we can define its probability as area under the curve between that interval. So since the total area is 1, this portion will definitely be less than 1 and greater than 0. So it satisfies that particular condition. But what about the other condition, that the disjoint sum of probabilities of union of disjoint sets must add up, right? That also follows directly from the property of integral, that if you have two disjoint intervals a, b and cd may be here. So if you take the area under that curve in those intervals, union of those intervals, it will be sum of the area of those two parts. So hence this naturally satisfies the conditions we need. Hence this f of x, which is always positive and whose area under the curve is 1, is helpful to derive probabilities of subsets of real number. So the function f of x is called probability density function. Here onwards we will denote it as p of x. Its properties are that p of x should be greater than 0 everywhere, and the area under its curve, so integrating it from infinity to minus infinity to infinity, should give you value 1. Using the density function, probability of at any interval can be defined as probability of x falling between a and b is equal to integral of p of x from a to b. Can we convert any function to a density function? It turns out that, so if f of x is always positive, then it's possible, and always it should be always positive, and area under the curve should be finite. Sorry for this mistake, it should be greater than or equal to 0. If f of x is greater than or equal to 0 and its area under the curve is some finite value c, then just you can verify that p of x, which is defined as 1 by c into f of x, has area 1 under this curve, and p of x can satisfies all the conditions required for being a probability density function. So most of the popular density functions are derived in this manner. For example, the normal distribution. So we know that exponential of minus half of x square has an area root of 2 pi, which is finite, and this function is always positive. Hence, if you divide the exponential function by 1 by 2 root of 2 pi, you get a probability distribution, probability density function. Can we use the density function directly as a probability value? No, because density functions can have value greater than 1. Consider a uniform distribution between the range 1 and 1.5. So consider a random variable which which is equally likely between this range. What will be its value? We know that the area under the curve must be 1. So if we integrate it between 1 to 1.5, what we get is 0.5 c. For this value to be 1, c has to be 2. So the value of the density function between 1 and 1.5 is 2, which is greater than 1. So hence, whenever we want to find actual probability, we have to integrate the density function between the intervals and get the value between 0 to 1. One more unusual thing in continuous probability distribution is that the actual probability at a single point is always 0. So just see how it turns out to be like that. So what happens to when we integrate a density function to a single point? So both of its upper and lower limits will be a. So all such integrals have value 0. So any function integrated at a single point will yield a value 0. Hence, the probability of at individual points in a density function in a continuous probability distribution is always 0. So which function should we use when we are dealing with continuous random variables, whether probability density function or integrate it and obtain the real probabilities? So since the actual probability value at is always 0 at single points, we cannot use those values to compare likelihood at 2 points. So we will we always have to resort to density functions to compare the likelihood of 2 single points. So in the coming tutorials, we will also see that most of the operations we will have to do on the density functions for this reason. Rarely, when we want to know the actual probability, we perform integration. So what about joint distribution on continuous values? So it turns out that we can simply extend those the constraints what we have on single one-dimensional variable. For example, if it's a joint distribution between two values x and y, so the value of probability should be p of xy should always be 0, and integration of p of x y with respect to both variables should be 1. This can be extended to any number of variables. These constraints are exactly are very similar to those what we have seen in discrete distributions. For example, if there are 3 variables, we have seen that the probability of ABC should be greater than or equal to 0, and summation of P of ABC over those different values of the variables should be 1. The only difference in these two constraints is that summations are replaced by integration. We will see that in most of the cases, whenever the whatever results you derive for discrete probability will hold with the continuous probability if we replace the probability distribution with the probability density function and replace the summation with integration. Let's summarize what we have learned so far. So, to represent probability in continuous when we have continuous random variables, we use a formula based approach. To obtain probability score on individual outcomes, we use density function. So that density function, it does not exactly represent the probability because it can attain values greater than 1 also. To obtain actual probability value, we integrate the density function. So such a probability will be always be 0 at if we evaluate it at a single point. Density functions are similar to probability functions on discrete variables. The most of the results on discrete probability hold for density functions if we replace sigma by integration.